This episode of the only podcast about movies was recorded a little differently. Due to being on the road, we had to record with much different recording equipment. So if you hear any slight echoes, pops, whizzes, bangs, or the sweet, sweet sound of a Seattle coffee bean grinder, please pay no mind. And with that, enjoy the show. What is up, Internet? I see no evidence of some spiritual choreographer at work. My name is Matthew Kroll, and this is the only podcast about movies, specifically the full-motion video game Late Shift. That is right, it is PAX weekend. I am now Shahirless this week. I love you, buddy, wherever you are on the East Coast, but I have conscripted the show all the way from Seattle. I'm here with extra credits and at the PAX Gaming Convention, and we thought it would be kind of an interesting thing to take a deep dive into a different style of cinematic, in quotes, you can't see the air quotes, but it's happening, cinematic experience. And there's this game that came out, we'll get into a little bit, called Late Shift, which is basically like a choose-your-own-adventure movie. So I've conscripted two of my fellow extra credits compatriots, friend of the show who's been on here multiple times, Mr. James Portnow. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for having me back.
Yes, thank you for being here. And Joseph Maslov, what up?
It's such a treat to hear you do this in person.
Yes, Joe has been doing our art for both Extra Politics and Extra Mythology, has been killing it. And yeah, I'm glad you decided to join us on this choose your own adventure.
I'm glad I could be on the FMV episode.
That is, yes.
This is exciting.
So here's the deal. This, for lack of a better explanation, this is a game I believe came out in 2016?
I think that's correct.
Yeah, and it is a full motion video game, but it has what I would consider the production value of like a real film.
Well, it's really interesting because there's actually a whole bunch of games that have come out recently that are doing this because finally we're at the point where FMV doesn't have to be that cheesy, low-res, night trap extravaganza that it used to be.
Yeah.
Late Shift, Bunker,
Contradiction?
Yeah, Contradiction. There's a whole bunch of these sort of things. And so it's interesting seeing people take two different media and realizing they're not actually that different.
Yeah. So this actually, we went over a bunch of different full motion video games. We were trying to choose which one to do. And this one, to me, looked the most cinematic. The production value behind the cinematography and sort of, I won't say that necessarily that the story is up to par with like a release of a film today. Although there's some garbage out there, but it looked the most cinematic. It looked the most like a film. So we have just basically finished our watch/playthrough where we rotated through choices, and we got in this experience you get one of 7 endings, and we're going to get into sort of like the effect that this sort of story had on us in a little bit, and it will also get into the effect of how this type of storytelling could either evolve, or does it work, does it not work, will it always not work, what are its bonuses, failings, etc. But if you have any thoughts, dear listeners, about any of this or about any of our cinematic toils that we tend to talk about on this show, you can email us in at onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com. You can tweet us at onlymoviepod, or you can, that's it. That's it. Because we don't check we check the Facebook. You can also get us on Facebook. Housekeeping out of the way. Gentlemen, let's do, before we get into the overarching full motion video game as opposed to a film conversation, let's go around the room and give our first impressions of this. I think because it's a little bit different than a film, we'll do our first impressions of how it functions as a visual narrative. Like how did the narrative affect you? Did you like it? Did you dislike it? What were the pros and cons? James, you want to start us off?
Sure. So to me, this was, as you said, a visual choose-your-own adventure. So one of the disappointments to me is that they didn't utilize all the possibilities of interactivity, right? It was just you make a choice, it goes to a different scene. I thought that it added some emotional engagement to actually have to make these choices, forced you to actually consider what was going on in the scene, which I thought was positive. There were some moments of disjunct. There was a hilarious fight scene, which I'm sure we will talk
We
to.
will talk about the fight scene, no question.
And so I also felt like that plus some of it forced me to continually ask myself what I wasn't seeing, which on the one hand is interesting because it forces me to consider the rest of the story, but on the other hand is negative because it makes me aware of the artifice, right?
Right.
You're aware that you're watching a movie in a way that you're not supposed to be in watching a traditional movie.
Yeah. What about you, Joe?
It's weird because there isn't that in terms of narrative storytelling. Like, what are the key differences between like something like this or a Telltale game, other than one is animated and one is not, right? So I wonder how much of this is the fact that it is FMV, the fact that it's full motion video, or the fact that it is just branching storytelling in video games, right? And narrative, Yeah.
I mean, let me ask you this. Did you enjoy the experience, and either answer to that, why?
I did, but I was expecting something way more campier. And I got, like I said before, something like I would catch on stars late night with my dad, right? And not that that's a bad thing. It's fun and ridiculous and goofy. And when you have those moments that you have in film, which is, like, oh, get out the room, you can get out the room, right? And then, obviously you don't have every choice to make, but to me, they're like engaging enough. Like the whole time, even though we were laughing at it or getting engaged with it, we were engaged, right? There was, oh, that was ridiculous, I can't believe that happened. There were the fight scene that we'll talk about in a second. Like, but it was fun. That was great. Like,
for me, I thought the thing that was really interesting to me is I would put this as a Metacritic 40 to 50 film.
Okay.
And if I had watched it straight through, I would be underwhelmed, right? Like, it's not something I would normally spend my time on. Having to have made the choices for all my criticisms of it being just a choose your own adventure and all that, I actually think I liked it better than if I had just watched this as a movie.
100%.
Yeah.
I think for me, the exercise of going through a film that actually is a choose your own adventure is already in my own brain feels like something we should not do. and there's sort of faults in the way the narrative sort of breaks up, and we did it actually in a very enjoyable way, where it was a group of us, where normally when you watch a film with your friends, a film of this sort of camp level, right? Although we could debate what type of camp, or if this is even camp, but like a silly film you watch with your friends, you tend to Mystery Science Theater it. You tend to, make snarky comments, etc. We just did the natural evolution of it and rotated around, and sort of, even though it was someone's turn to make a choice, we'd yell what choice we'd want. So there is precedent for this kind of experience, but I was shocked how much it didn't take me out of what was going on. But I do think, and I don't know if this was by design or if it was a happy accident, I do think that the quality, like you said, Joe, of like it being sort of like a late night stars thing you watch with your dad when you're flipping through the channels when you're visiting home, I think that actually, in a weird way, that level helps the points when the film breaks away and like stops for a slight moment to give you a choice.
Absolutely.
Because if it was the most gripping thing in the world, it would just be retching you out of the experience. If it wasn't gripping enough, you wouldn't give a shit about any choice that was going on. So it balanced that knife's edge way better than I thought it would. Another thing, I'll sort of do a little bit of a pros and cons from a cinematic standpoint. The cinematography is absolutely kind of gorgeous in its simplicity. They're not doing like crazy tricks. This is not Mad Max Fury Road. This is not like something where I would be like, you could teach a very like, here's how to shoot scenes 101 by this film. Yeah. There's nice like the colors are sort of balanced. Again, there's nothing is out of place to pull it to really like make your eye be like tear it away from what is going on, but at the same time, there's no tricks of visual styling that's drawing your eye line to a certain thing. It's just like, this is competently shot, and that lets you get through this semi-generic, almost like heist gone wrong tale. And actually, at this point, because this is a full motion video game and basically like a movie with 7 different endings you can get to, IMDb does have a description, and I love IMDb descriptions in general. So here we go. Matt, not me, the main character in the film, a smart student, great, has to prove his innocence after being forced to take part in a bold heist at a famous London auction house. The consequences take him on a journey across London to escape the twisted web he finds himself caught in, discover the truth, and gain his retribution. And then it says, how will the audience decide to act when everything is turning against him?
Well, and I love the fact that we didn't actually get most of that.
Oh, no.
Like, that was not the movie that we saw.
No. Describe the film we saw, James. What, like, our playthrough, our watch through, I don't know what to call this. I guess playthrough. Yeah. How would you describe the film? And let's try to do that. Let's each do this. What's the description? That was IMDb. Based on our choices, what was the film we saw?
A bumbling mathematician cowardly becomes a jerk, steals some stuff, gets used by a bunch of people, goes on a mini rampage, visits an old man, threatens him with a golf club, and then goes home to take a nap.
Yep. Joe, what about you?
A parking garage attendant gets pulled into a heist and goes home and take a nap.
And I'm just going to, I'm looking at the wrong mic. I'm talking to the wrong mic. I will say that it is Joseph. Is it Joe Sourbutt? What's his name?
Joe.
I think it was Joe.
Is it Joe Sourbutt is the actor who plays Matt. I will just call it Joe Sourbutt's Excellent Adventure because
Yeah.
it's so. Yeah, the description was not the description that we got. The film itself, and I'm gonna refer to it. I think I will refer to it as a film. I mean, there's enough here. It's just a different way, and Shahir will fight me on this. We will have fisticuffs when I return home.
So we've long had this problem, which I think is a useless problem, of people trying to define game with games. I feel like I'm very curious to see what you two's possibly as existentially useless discussion, but interesting discussion.
That's our bread and butter, James. We just do existentially useless discussion.
But like now that becomes a question of like, is this a film? If so, how does that definition help us, right?
Yeah.
How does it help us make film in the future? But so anyway, you were saying you're going to call it a film. Shahir's not going to call it a film.
Yes.
Why are you going to call it a film?
I'm going to call it a film because it not only was what was presented to me so minimally a game. Like, it just literally gave us choices. It's for instance, a choose your own adventure book is still a book.
Yeah.
So this is a choose your own adventure film. It's still a film. Like,
Sure.
you could, and there were moments, sorry, as a mechanic in this game, you could normally get 2 choices. Sometimes there was do nothing as a third option. That only happened once or twice. But the thing that I found interesting is there's a timer that goes down, and I don't know if the game randomly just selects a path for you or if there's always a predetermined path. We didn't play through it multiple times. But you could just hit the play button and watch it, and it's not going to stop. Like, nothing is putting on the brakes for you. So on that sort of thing, in conjunction with what I said before, I do think it's a film because you can just experience it like that if you wanted to. It's not even like the video doesn't like pause or anything while you're doing it. There's still characters like moving and looking around, and sometimes it felt a little fast because I do feel like if they did the Mass Effect thing where they're just sort of like standing and like wiggling, waiting for you to make a decision, if in actual film or digital film, it would look weird and hokey.
God, that'd be so good though.
Yeah, it would. Well, and then sort of speaking of weird and hokey,
The fight scene.
Well, yeah, no. Other than but here's
The
I'll
fight scene
even
was
do
great.
this. I'll even do this. I don't think there was anything in this that was weird or hokey.
I think his use of mathematics was.
Okay, talk about that. Let's
that
talk about that. So there's some scripting issues that we did deal with. James, describe his use of mathematics. Describe how we're gleaned it even in the beginning.
I feel like I've been talking a bunch. Do you want to take this one?
Well, I mean, he's basically introduced as what is a first-year college student getting into a game theory.
Yes,
and
he's reading a game theory book.
Right, he's reading a game theory book, which tells you he's a student and that he is passionate about this thing and may or may not be first year. He's excited about this, but it defines his character sometimes. Like I was kind of hoping that he tries to gamify these portions and they're like the first armed conflict he gets in, he does the math in his head of there's a 90% chance this guy could shoot me, but his arm is injured, so that lowers it to 70. But maybe if I run this way, blah, and he does the numbers, the fake bullshit math. Any other film with a higher budget, you'd have the equations popping up on screen,
sure.
and but that happens I feel like halfway through the film they just kind of dropped that.
They did.
I expected that to culminate in a way that was deliciously campy and ridiculous at the end, and it just stops halfway through. We just completely forget that aspect of his character.
But so what's interesting is there is a scene later on where they use Prisoner's Dilemma, which is the most 101 game theory thing you can possibly use. And I watched some of the alternate endings that we didn't get, and in one of the endings, they walk away, and the final sequence is him as one of the characters asking him the odds that they'll live, and but rather than calculate the odds, he ends the movie with something like, the odds don't matter.
It's like, fuck the math, I say the thing, or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
I say it's 100%.
Yeah.
And so I feel like there was in at least one of the endings that can't be returned, which is interesting, right? Because I'm sure that some of you who are listening to this will experience a totally different film than the one we're talking about and be like, wait a minute, what are they even speaking about with half this stuff?
Yeah, it's a I don't even know how to sort of get into sort of the bits and pieces of it. I guess we're going to get into a little bit of spoilers right now.
We've already been there.
We've been here a little bit, but here's the deal. We don't know if we're spoiling things for you because we don't know what you're going to get to.
We told them that he was a parking lot attendant.
We did tell him he was a parking lot attendant. You can glean that from the trailer. It's totally fine.
You will also learn that in the first 3 seconds of the film.
Yes, 100%.
But we did spoil the first 3 seconds of the film.
Well, yeah, but we tend to do that in general. I mean, that's kind of how it goes.
I tried to spoil everything.
Every 3% of the film you spoil.
No, everything.
Oh, just everything.
Not even
in general.
film. Right.
Okay,
just spoil.
Spoil something else right now.
I walked through fields of crops and they just sort of wilt.
Oh,
It's
so
actually
you're
great.
literally the embodiment of pestilence.
The spoiler, yes.
What are we talking about?
Who are we?
Is this real life? So Matt, who is our protagonist, Mr. Sourbutts to you, and I'm sorry I keep making. I don't think I'm making fun of his name. That must have been a difficult name to have during childhood, but B, kind of cool. After I started saying Sourbutts a bunch, I was like, yeah.
It's gotta ring. You're not gonna forget his name.
Well,
No.
It's interesting because so many actors take a nom de stage or whatever, right?
Tom Cruise.
Right.
Yeah.
Mr. Sourbutts, I'm guessing that's his original name.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing he proudly kept Mr. Sourbutts.
And let's talk a little bit about the acting before we sort of get into that too. I think he did a really good job for the script he was given.
Oh yeah.
I actually felt like there were some of the minor parts that were really weak, but overall this had better. I was expecting FMV level acting. This had a much better level of acting than I was actually expecting going in.
And I was trying to think. So then also, let me look up the other sort of cast members here. The main female character, Mei Ling, is Haruka Ab, I believe is how I would say it. I'm probably butchering it, but she did well. There's a moment in the film where he gets sort of tangled up. Matt gets tangled up into this thing, and then he has to go on a mission with Mei Ling at an auction house. And that was probably my number one moment where I felt the most tension. And what happens in this experience is you sit down and the plot is he's gotten conscripted after a guy makes him drive a car.
I didn't fully understand even why they ever needed that car.
Here's the deal. So Matt's a parking lot attendant. Let's back up a little bit. And then Matt gets conscripted to drive a criminal who came out of a ceiling grate for no reason, who had broken his arm. The criminal holds a gun to him and says, "You need to drive me out of here." They drive to the secret hideout We tried to escape at that point after he did a bunch of stupid math, and he just didn't do it. And he like tried to calculate the possibilities of like climbing over a wall before getting shot, and the guy literally just like grabs him by his belt and pulls him down.
That shot is so wonderfully awkward in a way that it feels so real. Like if a guy tried to leap over a wall from a man at gunpoint, he would do it as awkward as it was in that film. They did not try at all to make it look cool. So good.
There was no I don't think there was any I don't want to disparage anybody. There wasn't any real choreography when it came to the fast action or the combat.
The fight scene.
We're gonna get to the fight scene.
You're chomping at the
You
bit for that
really
fight
want to talk
scene.
about the
I
fight
actually want to never talk about the fight scene.
Oh,
I just want
just
to
wanna
bring it
keep-
up
Right.
all the time.
So they do this heist because the driver is injured, and we actually at that point talked our way into getting 50% of the injured person's cut, which I think really got May and the rest of the team to like us because we had gumption. And then we go to this crime thing where basically they have to steal the world's most boring teacup. Is the whole thing Joe, talk about that real quick.
God, I grew up. My mom's a photographer, right?
Okay.
So my mom, every time my mom and I watch a film, all we do. Can I curse on here?
Oh yes, we encourage it.
All we do is bitch about props.
Sure.
When this thing is supposed to be like a Ming Dynasty cup vase, and it looks like a thing you would buy at Daiso. It looks like a thing you'd get at a corner store, right? For 50 cents.
It literally looks like the teacups you get in a Chinese restaurant.
It was the most abysmal thing I've ever seen. It bothered me the whole goddamn movie.
And it's very strange because the rest of the film, this is a interesting point about filmmaking in general, and I'm sure it doubles when you have something more complex as far as a distribution and narrative way that this full motion video game is doing. I don't feel like the teams that were sort of building this together were really building this together. You probably had this, like, cinematography was probably where they dumped most of their money. And then props just probably had to do whatever props could do.
Oh, yeah.
Now, granted, I still think, like, James, even half of the cups in your house look more impressive than this teacup, or even more, I wouldn't even say impressive, more believable to be a Ming Dynasty $10 million teacup.
So I was actually wondering, because we did look up some Ming Dynasty teacups and they were much more fancy, but I was wondering, because this is such a major plot point and yet such a weak prop, I was wondering if somebody actually looked up one and found one that happened to have looked like that and was like, no, for realism, we're going to go with this thing, right?
Yeah.
And convinced everybody else to go with that, because I just can't see a team using that prop unless someone had a reason to use that specific prop.
Yeah, and I couldn't find anything in my very quick Googling after the film, so maybe there's a reason, but it's for something that visually, at least, is very competent. That was a moment every time I saw it, and people are dying over this thing, like, bad stuff's happening around this teacup. And people are bidding on it at the auction we're going to talk about in a second for upwards of $10 million. I was like, no. Like, and it wouldn't have been so obvious or derailing if the rest of the full motion game looked like that. Like, it's the one piece outside of the guy who kidnaps him. He looks like he shopped at, like, Thugs R Us, like the starter set, the very clean beanie cap that's black, and the very clean, like, it just looks like straight off the rack, like, henchman wear. But other than those two moments, everything else is very polished looking, and it was just, that was the major blemish, was this teacup.
Well, it's a MacGuffin. Like, it's the crux of the entire film, and you got it for $2. Like, I don't understand, because you're right, the whole film looks so good.
Yeah.
And if it all had that same level of camp, who cares?
Yeah.
But it doesn't, and it sticks out so much.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Well, and that's why I feel like there has to be a reason, because, like, otherwise somebody on set is going to point out, like,
hey, guys,
hey, give me 20 minutes and $20 and I'll go down to, like, the nurse place.
There has to be a reason.
Coffee, I'll chip it. I'll do something.
Right.
Like, we could, please. A handmade one at the garage sale?
Pottery Barn?
Yeah, Pottery Barn.
Thank you.
Okay, so, the auction.
Okay.
This is something that actually worked very well for me, and it's kind of the perfect moment to test out whether or not this conceit of interactivity of a film will work. You sit down, Matt, and I keep saying you because I feel like Matt is the main character. If this was a game, we
Right.
would be playing Matt. We're
Right.
making Matt's decisions.
Well, you only make Matt's decisions.
Right.
Yes. So I would say that it's fair to say
Yeah.
you.
So you sit down, and also it's my name, so it works out fine. So many levels with Mei-Ling, and you start bidding on this teacup. Now, the conceit is you're going to steal the teacup later, but you only had to get it like up a certain amount to make it worth money to steal, or something along the lines. And Mei-Ling basically goes off the reservation and just starts bidding like a madwoman.
So yeah, I think the conceit is that your group of thieves is getting 25% of whatever it ends up getting bought at auction
There you
for.
go.
So that's why she's going. And I also think they keep referring to it in the film as a rice bowl, but it is the world's smallest rice bowl.
Yeah.
If it was a rice bowl. But anyway,
So sorry. So there's multiple spots in this sequence that you can either egg her on, or you can leave her alone, or you can stop her. And as we were leaving her alone the first couple of times, or sort of letting her do what she wanted to do, that was the first time in this film, not when a gun was put to Matt's head, and not when you're making the deals to do this job, but the first time where I was legitimately invested. And where I was like, oh, there's a tension here. Things can happen here. And we eventually decided, I forget whose turn it was, to stop it. But after 2 or 3 times and getting the rice bowl up to $10.5 million, basically stopping her, and so we pushed it as far as I was comfortable going. And there's something very interesting in that experience, because again, you get that moment in different films, but a lot of times too, side note, we were giving the music a lot of shit in this thing, but I think the more I'm talking about it, the more that's a monetary choice, but B, the music in the scenes, there was often very minimal or no music. And I feel like in a regular film, the music or the score would be under that scene, cueing your brain as to when there's going to be tension, relief. Here, we just got to choose it.
well, and I think it's really interesting because you set it up as a contrast to when you have a gun pointed at you. And I feel like that's an interesting video game movie moment where when there's a gun pointed at you, some part of your brain knows, well, they're not going to end the movie here. So that choice doesn't really have big impact. But this, what seemingly smaller choice feels like it could have real consequences. You could actually do this wrong. You could blow this auction, and your brain doesn't think, well, that's going to end the movie, so whatever. Whatever choice I make, it's going to be fine, right? And so I actually like the fact that by having slightly lower stakes, you get to have real stakes. And I felt that to be true across the entire thing, that when they took the stakes to being life or death, all of a sudden those choices were way less impactful than a lot of the other choices.
Yeah. I think too, so as we leave the sort of auction, what got me was, so they got the price up real high. And then there's sort of like the sloppy and I feel like let's put a break on it real quick. I feel like I'm heaping a lot of praise on this. There are silly and bad things about it, but this is also something that I feel like kind of knows exactly what its lane is.
Well, and I feel like there's a lot to think about and to learn if you're just interested in the idea of cinema or games or that crossover. And I think the reason that we're heaping praise on it is because it's better done than it had to be, right? In some ways, it's like the early Marvel films, where everybody walked into those Marvel films expecting what used to be superhero films, which were just total schlock.
Yeah.
And instead, they got a decent film. This is not great by any means, but it's much better than it had to be.
I would like to just point out for the audience, and particularly Shahir Dowd, who is not here, that I was not the first person to bring up Marvel in this podcast.
And I want to point out for Shahir Dowd, that was actually all seated. Matt told me to say that beforehand.
I would like to point out that is a complete lie.
Shahir, believe me.
All right, well,
I'm actually lying.
You be the judge.
Yes, now you be the judge.
Yeah.
Because it's interactive.
Yep, yeah. Oh.
The choice is yours.
How could we not do... I'm going to have to think about that. How do we... okay, listeners, here we go. If you clap your hands after I count down from 5, it was James doing it all along. If you don't clap your hands, it was me telling James to do it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. No, Joe,
Yeah.
now they'll never know. You're in the narrative, so they can't know for... We have to move on now, Joe.
I'm option C.
I feel like we could even edit that out in post.
You don't know what's been edited out in post.
Right. So we can just have had that whole moment, and they will have heard us talking about editing it out in post, and this is going to be the most meta podcast about movies. You
won't
should just
even
call
know.
it the most meta podcast about movies.
The only meta podcast about movies,
Right.
about full motion video games.
Okay, so you're changing the podcast to being just about full motion video games from now on.
No, God,
Okay,
that would
got
be...
it. You heard it
that
here first,
would be
folks.
terrible.
That would be incredible.
Well, okay.
Because you would have splintering episodes. and then you know, like certain characters die off, and then you're like, oh, I really miss Matt, and then you're like, oh, let me go 3 episodes back. Okay, I'm gonna save Matt. Oh, I really miss Joe.
Just splintering decisions you have to make at the end. I wonder, you know what? We should look that up after this. Are there any choose your own adventure podcasts?
That has to exist. I mean, there's actually an audio Kickstarter. I don't know if you heard. It was the Thief and the for the visually impaired. If you haven't checked that
Oh,
out.
interesting, because I know of a lot of audio-only games for the visually impaired that are very interesting, that are kind of like Choose Your Own Adventures, but they don't... I've never seen a podcast bill itself as such. because I'm not
Podcasts
just
have it.
mechanisms.
But you know what you can actually do? So, you know, we're just talking about sort of interactive media in this way. Amazon, the Echo, has a bunch of apps that play as interactive choose your own adventure stories, which is again sort of similar to what we're discussing. There's a Batman one,
Gotcha.
I've played them for a couple minutes. They're fun. I don't know how long I would actually do it, but it's basically a interactive novel, much in the way we just watched an interactive film, but it's read to you over, you know, whatever home controlling spy device you put in your house.
Yeah, the best Alexa Batman one for anyone listening is the one where you play as the junkie thug who kills Batman's parents, and you get to just make the choices along the way. It's amazing. You should totally play it.
That sounds good. What?
That's not real.
Am I lying or not?
Okay, back to Late Shift.
All right,
Back
to Late Shift.
back to Joe Sourbuts, aka my moniker Matt, aka Captain of Sweaters. What was the alternate title to this? It was 8 sweaters deep.
8 sweaters deep because he wears 8.
He wears a lot of different sweaters. Maybe there's choices involved in
Is there a
that.
scene where he doesn't take off or put on a sweater?
He puts on by the end,
fight scene.
I think you're
Yeah, the fight scene, he does not remove or add a sweater. So you eventually go downstairs. There's a muddled sort of fight. You have to choose whether or not to basically choke out a bellhop to get the rice bowl or the teacup or whatever. We chose to choke out the...
Press F to choke out
Press
Bellhop.
F to choke... Yeah.
Well, the option wasn't to choke him out.
No.
So
It was
the
to
option,
stop him.
The option was open the elevator and stop the guy, or let him go.
It's actually your buddy who chokes
Who does
him out.
it?
Yeah.
So let's talk about that real quick. There was a couple moments. That's a good segue. There was a couple moments in this where, and this is a fault of choice-based video games in general. When it takes a complex action or concept and boils it down to a few words or a sentence. We chose in that scenario to stop him going up the elevator, and that led to our buddy choking him out with a tie and basically killing him. That's not when it happened. That's not what any of us wanted to do. We just wanted to stop him, but we didn't know the context that the story would take. I would say that in games, a lot of games, and this full motion video film in general, that is a fault. That's a strike against it, because it feels like the thing that it's giving us is sort of a bit taken away, because it's not clear as to what we're choosing. There were 2 or 3 moments in that where we're like, wait, no, we didn't. Okay.
Well, so from a design perspective, I think that it's just not utilized well, because it's actually really interesting, right? In life, all the time, we do actions that don't have the consequences we expect.
Sure.
In this case, opening the door, like holding the door so the guys couldn't go up the elevator, is something when the guy says stop the elevator, and you do it, you don't expect him to choke him out.
Yeah.
The problem is there's not a follow-up moment really where we get to decide, oh, okay, I really wasn't cool with that. Like, now my future actions are going to change because I've seen the consequences of that previous action.
Yeah. There's ways, like you just said, I think, to make it work. This just didn't do those things. It knocked us. It felt like as a group back for a loop every time it sort of happened. So moving forward down this weird branching path, we end up checking it. Is this after? No, we get in the getaway van.
Yes.
we have the key code.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Which was
So it's if you're a video game person, this is a very weird moment, because
Yes.
you go up to a door and it says, here's the key code, and it literally gives you the number, and it says, we're gonna have to push these in at exactly the same time here's the number, right? And it repeats, it gives you the number, spells it out, and you go up to the keypad, and it shows your person about to touch the keypad.
And in your brain, you're thinking, "Oh, I gotta memorize these numbers."
Gotta memorize the numbers
because you've played video games before. And
Yeah.
you know that. Okay, I've been Pavloved.
Yeah.
Conditioned
Yeah.
into.
The bell has been rung, and the food better come because I am salivating.
And then the choice is.
The choice is,
The choice is.
do you put in the right code or put in the wrong code? That's literally the binary option you get.
Yeah, and then when we chose to put in the right code, then there was a second option before because you had to push the button after the code at the right time, and it was like push it at the right time, push it at the wrong time.
Was there?
Yeah, there was a second. There was a whole little second bit.
I forgot about
So
that.
I'm wondering if that's a branch point, right? Like if that's like in this, because it feels like in this entire thing, there's larger choices and smaller choices. Some would just result in different dialogue, and maybe it sort of links together to push you somewhere else. But I wonder if you purposely mess that up, if it derails you further, or if I guess you always probably end up in the van.
I mean, unless there's a whole second half to this that we just never saw.
Yeah.
Because early on, there's a lot of choices of, do you help the criminals, or do you, because you've sort of been forced into this at gunpoint, or do you try and like stop them or derail their criminal activity? We did an odd mixture, but for the most part, we were in with the criminals.
We're criminals.
And so there's potentially a totally different hour and a half of footage that you tried to stop the criminals.
Yeah.
I don't think so, but that's the only way that I can see to really have that as a big branch point.
Something about this that got me sort of thinking of, like, I think this, and this will be, we'll get into this more when we start talking about this concept in general, but it did feel a lot like the paths when they branched would always sort of find themselves back into a plot point. Like, it didn't feel like it would feel like playing a tabletop role-playing game where, like, if you've ever played D&D or Pathfinder or Shadowrun, anything like that, you know that, like, the best laid plans of your GM, of your game master, often are not, they're not brought to fruition. Your players will always sort of pull you into a different, a different sort of path, and it's up to the person running the game to adapt and make the story enjoyable. Here, it wanted to give us the illusion that it could go anywhere, but it never felt like it could go anywhere. It felt like, especially after the first sort of two moments, it felt like there was always points it would go back to. Like it felt like there was just, you could never get away, like you could never take it fully off the rails.
Thread,
yeah.
And it was going down that central thread no matter what.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think... And then when it was over, and we realized that there were 7 different endings, so many of which were similar to one another.
They seemed very 7, quote unquote, like they were variations on 3.
Do you live or die? Does Mei Ling live or die? Who gets the rice bowl?
Do you take a nap?
Do you take a nap?
Do you take
We
a
got
nap?
the nap ending thanks to James's quick fingers on his turn.
I don't know, when you're complaining about you felt like you couldn't do anything. We went home and took a nap. That was our ending.
That was the
very
most.
good.
That was the most derailing I felt the entire thing could get.
Except the fight.
Do we want to talk about the fight? We're not there yet.
We're not there yet. We can wait.
We're at the end, but we're not at the fight.
We're
Truly
going back.
non-linear.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. You can choose your own adventure. You can fast forward or rewind to any point in this, and it will make just as much sense. I do suggest right now, at least, and I hope the sale is continuing. We purchased
It's
this
for $7.
We purchased this game/movie for $7.
Play it with friends.
And
It's so good.
This is something that would be fun to do with a group of people. I don't know if I could wholeheartedly recommend it to do by yourself. I don't think I would have enjoyed it as much. But I do think it's worth it, and I hope that by the time, if this is interesting you in the least at the sort of midpoint of this podcast, maybe even pause us for a second and go and experience this for yourself if you have a spare $7, because it's worth an afternoon just hanging out with your friends or your partner or whoever and just sort of going through it and seeing if this type of narrative is something that would appeal to you. And I think it would appeal to this particular one, because as we said, there's a ton of bad full motion video games. This particular one feels like a good gateway drug to see if you actually, if you want to go deep into the real bad stuff.
Well, and I feel like I'm just going to plug after this one, if you really like these sort of things, Contradiction is one that's more of a detective story where it has a little bit more game mechanics. And so it's an interesting follow-up to this because how the story proceeds is by you actually having to sort of figure out where people are lying and that sort of thing, and choose a group of evidence to prove that they're lying in each case. And so it takes it a little bit further into the game realm, and I'm actually not sure if one is better, one is worse, or if they're just different things, right? And appropriate for different stories.
There's also a game that I have not played, Joe, maybe you or Joe and James, that you have both played, Her Story.
Yeah.
Which do you want to speak to that a little bit, because that is something that I feel like is works in the same ways as this, but also might do things better in certain scenarios.
So I feel like the leap from using what was the title of this one again?
This was Late Shift.
Late Shift.
8 sweaters deep.
8 sweaters deep. So talking about this being a gateway drug to contradiction, which leans a little bit more into the mechanical realm, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's FMV, it has a flow to it. Her Story, I think, is wonderful, because when you think FMV games, if you're an FMV connoisseur, they basically go, for the most part, from start to finish. You are playing a movie. Do you want to do A, B, maybe sometimes C if they have a little extra budget, a little wiggle room? But Her Story is incredible in it's been the most interesting FMV game that I have yet to play, because
I think so.
the format is so open-ended. Basically, the conceit is that you have access to like a 1998 Windows analog computer, that this database that just has hundreds of like small video files ranging from 3 seconds to 2 minutes. And they're nothing but interviews with this one woman who is accused of a crime.
Sure.
And you are able to type things into this database, anything you want. And all the videos have tags. So you solve the mystery, you learn about this person, you learn about the narrative, you go through these interviews of just this woman staring into a camera, presumably talking to an interviewer, and you work your way through that and learn through the world, through discovery, and you guide the experience more than A to B.
Well, and the very cool thing is it also forces you to think a lot about the narrative itself, because you have to figure out, you have to discover these keywords, you have to discover these tags, and so you watch the same video clip over and over again, and you think about the little pieces that are being revealed, which works perfectly for a mystery. And you do really have to unravel the mystery yourself to get to see all of the video clips. So it's a very cool experience.
So there's multiple types of these styles of games, which is kind of what I wanted to get to. A lot of these conversations we're having, we are ourselves topically jumping back and forth, much like this game possibly could. But there's a lot of different flavors of full motion video, and video games, and while there are, it seems like a couple bright spots. Her Story, what was it? The one you just said?
Cloud Chamber.
Cloud Chamber.
Contradiction. Contradiction is very hammy. Contradiction
But
is
it's good.
Right.
It's like a
Yeah.
good hammy.
right.
And I would put this one in the category of a worthwhile endeavor and a good one as well. This idea of interactive film or interactive video, entertainment, has been tried a bunch of different ways, and I think I don't know if we've found the optimal yet. They each seem to do their own thing well and not well. And I mean, that's like saying what's the optimum video game?
Right.
Like, there is no optimum video game. It depends what you feel like.
It's Yakuza 0.
That's
but-
actually,
Yakuza
that's
0
just
is
correct.
sure.
I mean, that's optimum media, period.
Sure.
Yeah. No, I think Yakuza 0 is better than Infinity War. Please continue.
I'm going to go with Apotheosis of Mankind.
I'm gonna go with, I don't know about that, sir. Those are fighting words in this Marvel household. Well, this isn't my household. I'm in James's household, so maybe I don't know how much clout.
It's a great segue into the fight scene.
Oh, yeah.
So a bunch
The fight
of
scene in Infinity War.
yeah. So
why don't they just take the glove, or at least use the time stone to reverse it to the point where they don't monologue at the villain?
When did Sherlock get superpowers?
I can answer both of these questions. I'll do it very quickly. They can't rewind because Doctor Strange knows there's only one way to beat him, and he has to let things play out. He says that when he looks at all 4 million and 0.3 or whatever fucking timelines. And also, when did Sherlock get magical powers? He's been slowly getting more magical powers over the course of these 18 films beforehand, and now he's just literally a tech wizard. That's absolutely it. He has nano machines and like, at least they didn't do the thing they do in the comics with Iron Man, where the suit is literally stored in the quote hollows of his bones.
I only now realized that there's
multiple
two people
Sherlocks
who have played Sherlock. I meant Benedict
Cumberbatch.
Yeah.
Well, they both played.
They're both wizards.
Well, they both played Sherlock
They
Holmes.
both played Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry.
You win.
I
I'm so
answered.
sorry.
That's okay. So we're gonna fast
so when
forward.
did Thanos play Sherlock Holmes?
Thanos, Josh Brolin. Oh, the eight.
No, not Josh Brolin. Thanos.
Thanos. I mean, technically, he could do it whenever he wants or never because
Exactly.
he can do it whenever he wants.
Oh, he is.
Yeah, he's
right
always.
now.
He is currently.
All right, back to the thing at hand.
So, to get to the fight scene that we've been hyping up so much, we're going to talk about a couple different things that don't work before it. Because I think honestly, between the getaway car and the fight scene isn't exactly where this thing shines. So the getaway car gets run off the road seemingly by a random truck, and the van falls off a bridge, and there's some bad green screen. I think Joe called it out, of like them having conversations in this van. It crashes. Everyone but Matt and Mei Ling dies. So they take the...
But they don't really check.
Right.
No.
They just, we gotta go.
They move 2 feet away from the flipped over burning van, and then you have to convince Mei Ling to move. You try to bring the MacGuffin to the people that were supposed to buy it, but then they never heard of it. So it's like another second twist, and you leave there, and then you get captured by the family that really wants the rice bowl, and then you have this sort of the
prisoner's dilemma
the
scene.
prisoner's dilemma
yeah.
scene where you have to try to like answer the same as
Although dad slap in the middle of that work.
Oh yeah, there's some good dad slap. The head of this family just slaps the enforcer guy, and then instantly, as if he'd learned it all his life, that guy slaps Matt before putting like thumb screws on him. So you get tortured for a bit, and we decided to get tortured for much like the auction scene. We took it for a while, and they were like, let's not push our luck. So we're like, oh, we can get it for you, and they release you, and they have you basically like, the girl's gonna die if you don't bring us this 99-cent Walmart rice bowl. And so you leave. And so all that stuff happens. That never really felt sort of agency, except maybe, I think, again, I have to give Sourbutt's a good review here. He did pain very well. Like, when I was watching him get thumb screwed, I was like, oh, and I was like, that's okay, good job. That was fun acting.
I think it's helpful to note that you didn't see his thumbs getting screwed.
Yes.
They weren't on screen.
Right.
So we're only convinced
by his actions.
Sourbutt's face.
Yeah. I mean, that's how I'm convinced most of Sourbutt.
Yeah.
Sourbutt, how's this feel? Okay, cool.
All right.
I by the way, Joe Sourbutt, if you are out there, email us onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com.
What a badass! You gotta be such a badass to just.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Sourbutt. Yeah, I'm the star of this film.
I want to look up more of his work now. Like I'm not being pretend.
No, he was
like,
good.
Yeah,
he was good.
So then we get to the fight scene, and the fight scene feels like something that they shot specifically for the trailer. Like, because it has nothing to do with anything. Let me set the scene, dear audience, of this weird ass occurrence in this film. So you just escape the mafia people that want this rice bowl.
You've taken about 30 seconds of footage time to be just crying in a corner.
Yep, and it didn't actually give you the option to continue crying or get up and do something.
I was so hoping that it would just have a little prompt that says "keep crying." No choices.
Right.
But there's still a timer.
And it just puts you on loop until you decide to get up and pull yourself together.
Oh, that's even better.
So here's the deal. You walk down this alley, and you notice it looks like at first 3 men beating up 1 man. And your character's like, oh, I don't have fucking time for this. Oh, this all takes place in London, by the way.
London. Right. That's why he has 8 jackets.
Right. Yeah, and it's totally fine. And then you see behind him a cop car turn on its lights. Then a guy walks up to you, breaks off from the dude.
What looks like a gang beating.
Yeah. And he's like, hey, what's it with you, man? Get out of here. And you have to choose, like, fight or don't fight. And we chose fight. And then it gives you one more option to try to get out. By this point, we're just like, no.
No, we're in.
We're fighting.
Right.
And then Matt just beats the shit out of this gangster guy. And the other guys, like, come over, but, like, don't do anything. He shoves one of them, but now they're all on the guy you're beating up side. So I feel like, did you break up a fight club? Like, what?
But they looked at the end, they looked like they were dancing to me.
Yeah, they were dancing. And then the cops
Just sit there.
just don't do anything.
The
Like,
lights are just going on in the background.
there's first there's what looks like a gang beating, and then your main character kicks the shit to the point
Like,
where
brutal.
he beats them to the ground, and then as you know the bad person, I don't even call him a bad person, the person you're beating up looks up, he
Dancer
kicks
number
him
3.
in the face, and I was like, the cop's not gonna do anything.
Speaking of Yakuza, this was a Yakuza moment.
this
I
is
expected dollars to come flying out of that guy.
No.
So there's, and God, this is the weird part. It has nothing to do with it. It's totally perfunctory. It kind of derails what you're doing, but I absolutely loved that moment due to its ridiculousness.
Well, and it's switch in tone, but I loved the keep clicking on the word fight.
Yeah, it was, and I feel like the thing we're leaving out is, apart from the game, the moment in the room where we said, where like one of us yelled fight, and then we did it, and then we had another option, and it was the same option to stop or fight, and then we said fight, and then we punched him again, and then he just kept going. And
Yeah.
it's like, all right, yeah, no, that's yes,
Yeah.
that's what I wanted.
It was the communal nature of how we handled this, I think, was the best way to do it. And then the last sort of bit, then we sort of get into all the multiple endings. You finally go to the old dude's house who was running the auction, who was behind it all along, Scooby.
It did have a very Scooby-Doo
And there's lots of different options there. You accost him with a golf club. He pulls a gun on you. If you shoot him, we watched a bad ending where you just get lit up. And we got the ending where they get what happens before you go home. Oh, the gangsters come because they get the real rice thing delivered. Side note, they did a switch to a fake one at some point, which was not clear at all.
And it's especially funny given how fake the quote-unquote real one
Right.
looks.
Yeah.
So when they say the fake one, it's like,
If you're at all confused, dear listener, about what we're talking about, don't worry, we were too. And so they finally get the real one delivered to Old Man Evil's house. Then the gangsters come because you call them, you get money. No, that was a different ending. I'm sorry, I'm getting them all mixed up. You give them the bowl thinking that you're going to save Mei Ling, and then they say, you say, where's Mei Ling? And they go, we don't know, and they drive away. And then the options are, James...
Like, go look for Mei Ling or go home, take a nap.
James chose go home, take nap. We all in the room.
So good.
I did not say take nap.
No, but it
In
might
my
as well.
mind
It might have
it
well have
did.
said take nap.
Yeah,
It
he
said
looked very
go
tired.
home.
We all were like, James. And it was his turn. He didn't move out of turn, but it was the most derailing moment of the thing, which kind of makes it super interesting for me as an experience. And then at the end, you go take a nap, but then you get texted a picture saying
But the cops show up right before that and knock the text out of your hand.
yeah, because then you sort of they basically arrest you, and you see on the phone that someone sent a picture of Mei Ling and she's dead.
And the text reads, "It's done," or something to
Yeah,
that
just
Yeah.
like you wanted.
Right.
Yeah, just like you
There
are,
we go.
basically framing him.
Yeah.
Framing you, framing Matt, framing Joe.
Sour butts.
Sour butts.
I love it.
And that was the ending we got.
Yep.
And we're like, we weren't sure if it was the ending until, there's a moment when scenes sort of just drag on a little too long. You're like, and credits. And that's what happened. So with that all in mind, dear listeners, we're going to sort of end this discussion with the bigger question of why I was super interested to do a full motion video thing. Anyway, it ties in well, obviously, with the current goings on of PAX and whatnot. But, sour butt, do you think that this type of entertainment, how can we take this experience that we did admittedly enjoy and make it better?
Well, I'm going to be the jerkwad and ask, what does better mean?
Better
Because-
means... Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, go for it.
Better, when I say better, because obviously it's all subjective, right? I mean, so watching a film is something that is culturally accepted. People know if you go to well, they should know. You go to a movie theater, you don't check your phone, you be quiet, you watch a movie for about 2 hours. 2.5 if they throw 12 trailers in front of it, and that's kind of nonsense anyway. I'm not saying everyone does that. The movie-going experience is continually degraded and yada, yada, yada. That's not what we're talking about.
But it is now.
Yeah, I know. But what I'm saying is how, the answer could be it can't, right? But how could we make something like this an experience that would eventually become something that is sort of accepted as a wider range of people doing it? Like, for instance, would this ever work if there was movies that, for instance, the audience, it wouldn't be all friends, of course, but like the audience had buttons they could push. Telltale does things like this with their games where you can, if you're watching it in a giant, room of like 100 people, you can use your smartphone to link in and vote on the action that should happen. I played the Guardians of the Galaxy game at the release, doing that way. Do you think that is something that could be brought in to be more mainstream? Should it be, and is it even possible?
That's such an interesting way to ask that. Are you asking how to fit that into a movie theater setting?
I'm talking about, or how do we? And I'm saying the movie theater setting is an option.
Right, gotcha.
Is there a way?
I mean, like Clue.
Kinda. So, like, is there a way, or is it even worth it to try to make this an experience that would eventually be as normal as watching a film, playing a game, or reading a book? Because this feels weird right now. Like we got into a groove of it, but like most people and most listeners to this podcast probably haven't played a full motion video game when it comes down to it.
So Matt, what is your history with FMV games? Because this will help give me
Sure.
perspective on.
I mean, back in the day, I played Night Trap, that wonderful piece of media.
Classic.
I played, and these aren't sort of full motion games, but the closest that I got real deep into is sort of
The Marky Mark video game for Sega CD.
Of course.
Oh, yeah.
I never leave home without it. I would say like 7th Guest and 11th Hour are they're not full motion video games, but they're rendered things with sort of FMV components to them. And even to a lesser extent, but not quite really, you could even argue, no, you really can't. I was going to say Mist, Riven, etc. is a precursor to this sort of type of thing. That's where my history went. I haven't played a full motion game other than, well, I guess Telltales aren't, because there's not video in them.
But I think that's the conversation that I'm most interested in, is like, okay, what about the FMV experience is the thing that a lot of people either laugh at or object to or assume that it makes it a like bad experience, right? Because I play this, and for the most part, this is like half to like 75% a Telltale game that you shot on a camera.
Yeah.
Right? And so why is the Telltale choice, branching path choice, visual narrative experience different than a bunch of actors on a screen where you do the same thing?
James?
So, I don't think it necessarily has to be. I think that this is lacking certain components to the Telltale experience that are integral to the Telltale experience. One, which is harder to do with the sort of actors on the screen thing, the little bit of being able to actually move around, right?
Okay.
Two, it dropped some of the game-like elements that I think are important. Blank will remember this is actually, I think, very important to Telltale experience.
Describe what that is for people that haven't played a Telltale.
So for any of these, you make some choices, right? And these whole games are about choices. And sometimes when you make a choice in a Telltale game, like you're distributing food amongst a group and you choose not to give one of the people food because you don't have enough food for it'll say whatever their name is will remember this. And as you're making these choices, it just clues you in on the impact of these choices and the impact on other people. So it makes the people around you seem real and seem like they have a past and a personality and thoughts of their own. And I think that's very integral to the experience. And that could obviously be integrated here very easily. It just wasn't. And so I feel like that element's also missing.
And so I think, for me at least, the question of can this be done is absolutely yes. And it has been. It's just that I feel like there's a culture around FMV that is focused on camp. Just like you guys talked about earlier, the culture around comic book movies, they were bad until they weren't. Right? Just like FMV games, they were bad until, like, culturally, I feel like a lot of video game enthusiasts and film enthusiasts just don't know the good ones that exist right now because there aren't that many. And so as long as we have enough quote-unquote good ones existing, then people can learn from those.
Yeah. I think, and this is where Late Shift sort of falls. It's not, Late Shift in no way do I think is going to be a trans, like a what's the word I'm looking for? Like a thing that, like a trendsetter or something that changes the game for full motion video. I think it's the best looking one, and maybe it can convince people to spend a little more money on what they're actually shooting. Like, but that's sort of more of on a corporate or individual company level. Right. Nothing in this experience is something where I will go to my friends who were not in this room and be like, oh my God, you absolutely need to do this. Like I said before, is it worth $7 to hang out with your friends for an afternoon and watch it? Yes, I would suggest that to people, but it's not something that would come up in conversation outside of, like, you know, we're around a gaming convention right now. We wanted to do something that tied in with movies and games. This was a thing, and now we're here. What I think is needed for that sort of moment of trend setting or sort of changing the game is sort of twofold. One, it's going to happen where, you know, people that are growing up, you know, now, maybe even children might see, not this particular one, but like full motion, if it does start to pick up, they'll probably sort of start seeing it. Maybe one of them, when they become an adult, will elevate it, much like sort of comic writers and readers elevated Marvel, right? So there's something to be said about sort of just letting time take its course, and maybe that'll do it. The other thing that has to happen, I think, is you kind of, to break in, if you want to play this game, if you don't want to play sort of the long game, you want to move it faster, you need to do like a high profile one of these, and you need to make sure not only is the visuals good, but you have good names attached, and you have good mechanics or choices, or enough choices to warrant not just watching it as a film. What was the series that was both a television show and a video game?
Oh, the MMO?
Quantum Break?
Was it?
There was
no.
one on the Xbox that was both.
There's an MMO. I can look it up real quick.
There was. I'm trying to think. That's the closest. There was a television show that ran alongside an MMO, and James Cameron was like, his company was attached to it, and they were trying to Defiance.
I never jumped into that.
And that was,
it didn't work out well.
Yeah, because it's not. They didn't have the sort of magic formula of what interactivity versus passiveness you need to make that experience flow back and forth. That was trying to take two mediums and have you bounce a narrative back and forth,
as opposed to having one that's the book.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
To make full motion video stuff a thing, and I'm personally not convinced it will ever come out of niche fully. Sure. Unless there's something where there's individual experiences that become so renowned that it becomes something like for instance, a piece of performance art that you would go to a special place to do, a la Sleep No More in New York City, where you walk through a play basically and follow characters around, that sort of thing. This feels like, to me, because you as a viewer have agency, it falls into that. We need something of that sort of artistic merit, where this has, again, great cinematography, good actors, kind of garbage script, generic plot. Garbage music. So it's not going to be the thing that makes this move. And I don't know, you'd have to be a ballsy investor to like really put something behind something like this. So I think it'll be slow going, if at all.
I'm going to argue that I think if this is ever going to break out at all, we're doing it wrong. I think that there have been some really good examples, like we talked with Her Story and Cloud Chamber, that are closer, that have more game-like elements to them. And I think those are impactful. But if you're looking for more, something even closer to cinema like this was, if you look at a lot of these games, almost all of them are like heist, crime, mystery things. Because the easy go-to for these is that I actually think you want to do something slower. I think you want sort of like an indie film, right? Or an indie rock song is what it should feel like. I think you want something emotive, something personal, maybe about a small group of friends. Like if you did the day before you all leave for college, right? Like high school growing up story in one day where you had those choices. I think that could be more impactful and cross more lines than trying to do another mystery.
I'll even go sort of a step further. I agree with that. I think smaller, more personal things. Again, we were the most invested in the auction.
Yeah.
And let me change that. We were the most invested in the non-silliness.
Right.
At the auction. The fight scene we were super invested, but the fight scene didn't mean shit.
Fight.
But one game that I love that I feel like might work as if they made a full motion video thing, and it might be a stretch, but is Night in the Woods.
Oh, sure.
So Night in the Woods is a mundane tale. You play, and they're all anthropomorphic animals, but that's not really important. It's a 2D sort of walking sim almost, where you play a girl who comes back after her sophomore year of college, dropping out and going back to her hometown. Right. And there's so much realism and sort of emotional stakes in small things. Like, your parents forget to pick you up at the bus station, and you feel for this thing. Like, so if you were to do the type of choices you make in, say, Night in the Woods, in a full motion video game, I think it would have a much more emotion behind it than, say, like a gun in your character's face.
And I'm so glad you bring that up, because beforehand we were talking about the moment where we do the key panel, right?
Yeah.
I think I think exactly what you're describing, kind of reveling in the mundane or the awkward or the goofy, I feel like helps exactly this, because just like in real life, not everything plays out like a film.
Yeah.
And when it's interactive, for example, in that moment, like, I don't even remember you said it was a second step where you could set the timing or get it wrong or do it at the wrong. There should be a moment where you get it wrong, and you both have this moment of like, oh, I'm like, the suspense should drop for a moment, and it should just be goofy, because life is goofy. Right. In these scenarios, you should have yes, quiet moments, but like real moments like you bump into someone or whatever, or like a good like if your parents left you at the bus stop, would you walk home or would you wait, because dad'll definitely come, and then when he doesn't, you feel like garbage, right? And he feels like garbage. Like, that's wonderful. And I feel like you're absolutely right. I feel like telling smaller stories is such a good idea.
Those things you just described have far more agency than like a gun in your face or a car chase. Absolutely. or a torture scene, which again, and I'll sort of get into my final thoughts here, and then I'll let you two sort of finish it off, because we're slowly coming to the end of this multiple choice adventure. This feels to me like an incredibly well-made college film. James, earlier this week we were talking about the writings and the films and whatever that we made in the past, and how like when we look back at the things we created when we were in our 20s. It gets a little bit cringeworthy, and because we don't have the life experience to know that the things we're making might, like, we're thinking we're being real serious, and then we look at it from a lens of 10 years later, and we're like, oh, that's kind of goofy. Yeah. This is something that I would equate to the sort of infancy, or this feels very college to me. It feels very competent, but it feels very, like, from a story perspective, something that was written by a college student. I know the director, if I can find their name very quickly, this is their first directorial debut. So that says something, not necessarily a bad thing, but it's you kind of get that it's done. Oh, Tobias Weber, and it's something that, like, it smells like a first time director, and it's directing something completely different than you normally would. But there's much like sort of college stuff that you look back at or stuff like that you can see that there is a talent there. It's just not developed yet. So I would say that this, along with sort of the feeling like the creatives who were behind it, plus the genre that it falls into, is very much in its freshman year. And whether or not we'll see more of it, I guess only time will tell. I personally think this is worth $7 if you have friends you think would enjoy this and have a good time with it. That's where I'll sort of leave this. Who wants to go next?
Shoot us.
I mean, I'm such a big fan of supporting creators of things, and I am 110% with you with, like, we can bitch about how this feels like a sophomore college film, but this is so much better than I expected, but also there's so many pieces of it that are so good, and I think the reason why it's easy to make fun of aspects of it is because how like the MacGuffin being like the corner store teacup garbage that we can keep complaining about. That's only a big deal because the rest of it is so polished.
Yes.
And I would love. I think it's worth $7 just to support them to see what they make next.
Fair.
Yeah, that was exactly my thing. That this left me wanting to see where we could go with FMV because it shows you that it doesn't have to be just goofy. Is it the apotheosis of the form? Not at all. But I want to support some of these FMV things because I like people experimenting with media, and I would hate to see this just disappear because we all laughed it off.
Right.
There we go. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for sticking with us through this amazingly, I will guess say, choose your own adventure of a podcast, this being the only podcast about the, and I will say it again, film Late Shift. Thank you so much, James. Joe, it was a delight discussing this with you. Let's start with you, Joe. Joe, when you are not creating amazing art based on politics, mythology, or checkbox other things, where can folks find you?
You could find me at josephmaslov.com.
Good.
MASLOV. Or elsewhere through that.
Twitter machine?
Twitter machine, super_Jogurt.
There you go.
I believe.
I think it is. I think I follow you. So I think I
totally
know.
super.
Yeah.
There we go.
And James, when you are not lying about me telling you to say Marvel things when I didn't
Or
tell you to do
did
it,
I?
yeah, where can folks find you, buddy?
Yeah, come check out Extra Credits, Extra History, Extra Sci-Fi, all these things. If you just like learning about stuff, our channel is Extra Credits on YouTube, and yeah, come check us out there.
I've been shilling that all over the place. You can find me there on narrating the Extra Credits Wonderment, or you can find me at my own website, mattthewkrol.com for my life and work, Skeletor, the number 4, PREZ on Instagram, or Emperor MSK on the Twitter box. Yeah, I guess we should leave this lovely discussion, and we should, I think, yell the one word that we think encompasses the entirety of our feelings. And what was the one moment? And I don't want us to say it before we end it.
Oh, we all know what it is.
What's the one phrase or moment that we could all yell at the count of 3 to end this?
All right.
Here we go. Ready? 3, 2, 1.
Fight! Jack is deep!
We'll see you next week.